Good evening and welcome. Tonight we will be going over the history and geography of Ashgabat in Turkmenistan. Ashgabat is the capital of Turkmenistan. It's the capital city, and the area is just surrounding the city. We already talked about the Ahal region, which surrounds it entirely. There should be a little guy popping up there eventually to tell you more about it. But we are just talking about the city of Ashgabat, which has a very interesting history. If you know nothing about the city, stay tuned, because when we go to Google Earth, you're not going to believe your eyes. It is a very bizarre, strange city, and apparently the most expensive city in the world to live in. We'll explain why in a bit. But Ashgabat, as you can see, is located in the foothills of the Kopet Dağ Mountains, which make up the border with Turkmenistan and Iran. And to the north of it, you can see there's a lot of nothing. That is the Karakum Desert. And it's pretty much what you think. It's a lot of nothing. It's a lot of rocks, and it's nothing as far as the eye can see, pretty much. Ashgabat lies right there. So, since we're just talking about the city, that's about it for geography. Before we get into the history portion, the early history of this area is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. So I'm going to grab my tablet so we can read about the Parthian fortresses of Nisa. Here we go. The Parthian fortresses of Nisa consist of two tells of Old and New Nisa, indicating the site of one of the earliest and most important cities of the Parthian Empire, a major power from the mid-3rd century BCE to the 3rd century CE. They conserve the unexcavated remains of an ancient civilization which skillfully combined its own traditional cultural elements with those of the Hellenistic and Roman West. Archaeological excavations in two parts of the site have revealed richly decorated architecture illustrative of domestic, state, and religious functions. Situated at the crossroads of important commercial and strategic axes, this powerful empire formed a barrier to Roman expansion while serving as an important communication and trading center between east and west, north and south. So like it said, Nisa was a city in the Parthian Empire. You can see what's been excavated of the sites here. The Parthians were a Persian empire left over from the conquering of Alexander the Great. And like it said, they were pretty much one of the instigators against ancient Rome, in a sense. And one of their forts, we believe it's a fort, I was reading about it, and apparently there's no evidence that it's really a fort, but there's ancient stories that Nisa was built as a fort, but like it said, it's not completely excavated, so we don't know. We haven't found any fort evidence, but old stories are about how Nisa was a fort here in the wilderness to stop any kind of Roman expansion in the area. But that came and went, and was actually destroyed in an earthquake in 100 BCE. It was thus abandoned, and nobody would really settle in the area until the 1830s, when the Teke Turkmen nomads would bring their yurts over and start to settle a little bit more permanently than they normally had been doing. would slowly start to turn more and more into a city. When everything changed in 1881 at the Battle of Göktepe. And that was a battle between the Turkmen and the Russians for who was going to control this area. And the Russians won, and Imperial Russia took over what's now Turkmenistan. It started implementing their concepts of city building and industry. They originally built it as a fort, which is kind of poetic in a way, isn't it? And, fun fact, in 1908, the world's first Baha'i temple was built here in Ashgabat. It's no longer standing, and I'll tell you why in a little bit. Don't want to skip ahead. We have to, of course, talk about the collapse of Imperial Russia and the rise of the Soviet Union, because a resistance movement against the Bolsheviks built up in the city here in 1918, but by 1919 the Soviets had complete control of the area, and it became part of the Soviet Union. Now, here's what happened to that temple and many other buildings in Ashgabat. On October 6th, 1948, a 7.3 earthquake struck the area, devastating the city, which was mostly made out of like mud, brick, and things. Pretty much collapsed any smaller buildings, and many hundreds of thousands of people died, according to Turkmen numbers. According to Soviet numbers, it was far less, but still, they say it was around like 40,000, which is still so many, but many people lost their lives in the middle of the night in this earthquake, including Saparmurat Niyazov's mother, the first president of Turkmenistan. He was orphaned. His father had already been killed in World War II, and he became orphaned from that earthquake. And since the city was devastated, once the dust had settled and the Soviets had to move everything, it was time to rebuild. I should note that nowadays earthquakes are measured on the Mercalli scale, which doesn't measure the magnitude, it measures the destruction. And it was rated a Mercalli 10. The scale only goes up to 12, so it was devastating. So it was time to rebuild, and rebuild they did kind of slowly in the 1950s. By the 1960s, 70s, it really started to ramp up in terms of modernization, that Soviet city planning. Very, block neighborhoods, big squares pretty much. But things spiraled in terms of construction. In the 1990s, Turkmenistan had become independent from the Soviet Union, which had collapsed. And they were making buckets of money from the natural gas that's located underneath Turkmenistan and their stations here along the Caspian Sea. And they were getting rich. And that guy I mentioned, Niyazov, along with his successors, I have to say the name carefully, Berdimuhamedov. If I say it too fast, I'll stumble over it. Berdimuhamedov, oh goodness. Terrible people, but we'll get into that. They decided to go full city planning, like extremely overplan the city. And with all of that money, they built multiple monuments, multiple luxurious structures, huge high-rise buildings. In the 1990s, they got it in their minds to make all the buildings white marble. And later, they got the idea to create all of these Guinness World Records in the city, so it has the highest concentration of white marble buildings. At the time, they'd built the world's tallest flagpole. I think now it's the 5th largest. The world's largest indoor Ferris wheel, which sounds kind of lame, but you can see outside. You're not just looking at a ceiling, and then all kinds of just ridiculous building records. Meanwhile, Turkmenistan is a complete police state. The country's shut down. Everything's closely monitored. People thrown in jail forever for the most minute criticisms against the government. No freedom of the press whatsoever. It's giving Pyongyang, right? It's these beautiful, luxurious parks and structures. It's all beautiful, but it's completely abandoned. Those streets are empty. And that's because people can't afford to live in these luxurious buildings. They're pretty incredibly poor, And there's been even plans as of, I think the last big push was 2022 to bulldoze more neighborhoods, residential, tiny little neighborhoods, to build more massive high-rise apartments that people can't afford. It's a lot. It's one of those places that on surface levels you're like, wow, that's kind of neat. Like, what a strange place. But then the more you dig into it, the more depressing and upsetting it gets. And, researching this, I had my highs and lows of like, wow, this is a cool structure, to, oh, this makes me very sad. It's not a happy place. But, for the people living here, life still goes on, right? Every place is everyone's every day, right? It's kind of a weird thing to think about. Every place in the world is a boring, same old humdrum for somebody, right? And that's Ashgabat for a very few. But I don't know what I'm saying. It's an interesting place. Why don't we go take a look on Google Earth? I don't know how long we're going to play on Google Earth because there is a lot to see. I'm going to try to condense it down. But, it's just a rabbit hole of a place of finding all of these bizarre, huge structures. Let's go check it out. So here we are in Ashgabat. Let's start by zooming out so you can see exactly where we are in the world. If you're not quite sure where Turkmenistan is located. Turkmenistan's in Central Asia. You can see Iran's down there. Russia's up here. We've got the Caspian Sea. And here's all the Stan countries: Afghanistan, Pakistan, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, so on and so forth. And Turkmenistan right here. But let's check out this place. Maybe we should start with this slideshow, so we could see some of the sites here. This, I think, is the President's Palace from the looks of it. Oh, is it the same pictures over and over? Oh, you know what it is? I remember this slideshow doesn't always have pictures of Ashgabat, so we'll stop here, but we'll take a look at this monument too, if we can find it. I'm sure I will. The Haltek, is that what they're called? They're a horse breed. Very beloved, especially by the former Berdinumamedov. I'm not going to try. Anyway, but we're going to start off in Nisa. Let's see if I can find it naturally. I've been trying to find it, or practice finding it naturally. If I go over here, it's right here. Isn't that something? There's a whole ancient city right in these people's backyard. Isn't that incredible? Nothing's popping up for it, so let me pull up Nisa Ashgabat so we can see what it looks like. At least what's been recovered, right? So interesting. Tower there of some kind. Little pillars. It's interesting. And like it said on UNESCO, they're just getting started on excavations of this site. So there's probably so many more things to discover under this big old tell. The bricks there. I guess they're trying to put things back together. So this is the Ashgabat that you normally would not see. If you looked it up, you would see places like that big mosque over there. go into the insanity that is Ashgabat. Let's just dive into a spot. Let's start over here, where you can see some of these big structures here. There's no 3D here, so there's some government buildings there, some monuments, the Alem Center. Oh, this is the world's largest indoor Ferris wheel. Let's see. There's the view. Christmas trees up. Yeah, you can ride around the world's largest indoor Ferris wheel. A big, big park here. Let's see. One of many big, big parks. You can see some more big monuments there. We're going to take a look at. There's the park from the Ferris wheel. She's a dog. Over here, see, it's like it just keeps happening. Another monument. Look at this one. This is a radio tower or a TV tower, and it's the world's largest star on a building. It's a whole thing. And I'm not, these structures are beautiful, right? It is very impressive, but you think about how all of this could be put to so much better use. There's some more high rises here, of course, all in their white marbly glory. Here's the National Museum, and this was, once upon a time, the world's tallest flagpole. Can you see its shadow there? And then here's the flagpole. I think the tallest is now in Saudi Arabia, which actually we're going to next. What a good tie-in. I should have saved that fact. Let's take a look at the National Museum, one of the few buildings to survive the earthquake. It obviously didn't look like this in 1948, but this has always been the site of the National Museum. Isn't that interesting? Yeah, there's the flagpole. Let's see if we can... I thought when I looked at this, there were some exhibits. That's incredible. Maybe like a big wine goblet or a horn or something. An old mosque there. A view of the luxurious city. We'll take a look at this park. That's the one with all the horses. Some pottery. Dioramas. There's the big guy himself, and their fabulous horses. That's interesting, isn't it? Very, very ancient. The other monuments are going to see another Alteki horse. Yeah. What's also over here? I mean, there's way too much to see. Lots of embassies over here. International school. We have sports complex over here. We have this massive park. Nothing pops up for this monument, but it looks massive. But this is the Renama Monument. So, there we go. First president, I don't know, I'm blanking on his name, Nazarbayev, I forget, but he wrote this book, The Renama, which is supposed to be like a, kind of like Gaddafi's Green Book in a way, like, and it's green too, like a declaration of like Turkmen way of life, and it's extremely important, and school children have to read it every day, and you have to be able to recite it, I think, to graduate high school. And I even read that the driver's test in Turkmenistan has questions about the Renama on it to get your driver's license. So this monument, as you can see, is a giant book. And twice a day it opens up and plays music and plays quotes from the book. Yeah, it's giving Pyongyang, right? This is Independence Park. You can see some more fantastic big monuments here. This is one to the tribal leaders, the ancient Turkmen tribes. And yeah, it's a lot. And as you can see, nobody's here. These parks are empty. Now I will, like, one of the things I'm like, wow, that's so cool. It's like, yes, it's all white in the day, but at night it lights up in all kinds of colors. Very clever. But, you get that feeling like, wow, that's really neat, before you realize that's actually really sad. These parks are completely empty. Every single one of them. You'll never see a single person. It's really a lot to take in. And this is the big Independence Monument. Right, yeah. It's massive. All kinds of statues, all kinds of fountains. They have another park. It might be this one, I'm not sure. That has the world record for like the most fountains in a park. It's ridiculous. Ridiculous. John Oliver did a piece on Turkmenistan and Ashgabat and how like Guinness World Records should not be giving these prizes to authoritarian governments. It was just like using that organization to boost their own egos. There's the Turkmen Carpet Museum. Beautiful, beautiful carpets, right? That one's gorgeous. Oh my goodness. There's a yurt. And what a yurt is like inside. Looks like the minaret of Jam right there. It might just be. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful carpets. It's an old mosque. There's Merv, which is a really, really cool ancient site, which is kind of sort of nearby-ish. Look at all these. Oh, that's absolutely gorgeous. I think I'd enjoy this museum the most, to be honest. They're all so beautiful and so lovingly displayed. Little theme park over here, but then we have this park where we can see the big horses. Right? Maybe not this statue. I thought it might be this park that has the most fountains, but look how absolutely deserted this place is. Nobody can live here. Nobody can come here and enjoy it at night. It's just abandoned. Completely empty city. I think the big horses are over here, but you see, look at all the fountains. Again, just towing the line of like, wow, that's really cool, and wow, that's really sad. I think this is the horse statue. Or maybe not. I know it's in this park. Over here is the President's Palace, the Oguzhan Palace. Oguzhan, if you've noticed a bunch of stars everywhere, like on that one big building, that is the Oguzhan, which is one of the national symbols of Turkmenistan and the Turkmen people. Lots of big statues, lots of luxurious living. Let's see. Another monument there. Every car has to be white. The first Berdinmuhamedov, I think Kurpenguli, right? Berdinmuhamedov, thought black cars were unlucky, and it kind of adds like a more like luxurious feel to have everything be white, you know? You see Lenin Park there. They had changed all the names from Soviet names in the I want to say like the 1940s, but then they changed them back in the 1990s. But, you know, we go further out and you can see the real Ashgabat, where people actually live, where you would actually see people around in these little communities here that aren't glamorous, that aren't beautiful, but that's their homes, right? That's what they want to demolish, to build stuff like, let's find a neighborhood like this. Oh, this is another park. What is this? Memorial Park. Oh, this is actually a memorial to the earthquake victims. This is what they want to demolish homes to build stuff to, which again is gorgeous, right? Absolutely good. There's the star. Can you see it? Gorgeous, but why? Why? I don't know. And I was also reading that the next plan of major expansion is to build resorts for tourism, which is not something that they've been pushing ever, but I guess they want to go the full Pyongyang and do their own tourism program where, it's very carefully monitored. I do not recommend doing tourism programs like that. You don't want to give your money to these people, and you don't want to risk stepping out of line by accident. Right? I think we're gonna end it there. It just makes me sad. There are lots of other things to see in this city from above. It is fun to just kind of wander around these huge parks and find all these kind of ridiculous huge monuments to whatever. All these huge roundabouts and little decorated, there's a lot of cars here. I've never seen that many cars in Ashgabat. Like here's another park. Like you can just get lost in a place like this, in this city, finding all kinds of just ridiculousness. So I do recommend playing around, but again, you might get bummed out when you realize what's going on in this country. It's not pretty. Turkish Friendship Park. Say that 10 times fast. See, like it's beautiful, right? Isn't it? I think this is where I was reading that they have a statue for Ataturk. To add to all of their other statues. I don't know. Yeah, I'm gonna end it there. It just makes me sad the more that I explore this place. So thank you so much for watching. Let's take a look at this park. Inspiration Park. Oh my goodness. If you enjoyed this style of content, please consider subscribing. This is an ongoing series on my channel. And next, like I said, we're going to be heading over to Saudi Arabia. And it's a part of Saudi Arabia that my Saudi viewers have been saying, when are you getting to this region? When are you getting to this region? We're going there now. So, there's so much history here. So be sure to subscribe so you won't miss out. See, look, these are the houses they want to build. Places like this and places like this to replace all those little neighborhoods. I don't know how I feel about that, but I hope that you found this video to be relaxing and educational. Look at this sports complex. How many sports complexes do they need? Anyway, and I hope that you have a good night. Good night.